Hey. It is BoilerBall post-game in the lounge. I'm Sam Springer, joined by Dustin Schutte. Dustin, Boilermakers eke out one against a very undermanned Oregon team at 68-64. Not exactly what most of us were expecting from today.
No, most people expected this to be much like the Maryland game, where I don't know if Purdue would, win by 30, but to the point where you thought that this would be a comfortable lead, not much to worry about, and it took Fletcher Loyer hitting a three-pointer with less than 30 seconds left in this game for Purdue to eke out a win. So, big time, or it might have been under a minute, whatever it was, but late three.
I think there was 27 seconds left when the Oregon called timeout.
Okay, that's what it was, yes. So, because I remember they had a shot clock. They had 6 seconds left on the shot clock when they called timeout. So, yes. But, yeah, I mean, this was a grinded out type of game, and the important thing is Purdue got the win. But there are – I will still say this is an undermanned, an 8-14, a one-win Big Ten team. Some concerns, I think, is safe to say after this game.
Yeah. I mean, now TKR in the press conference said, when you've got one of the best players from in the conference, one of the better players in the conference coming back in Nate Biddle for Oregon, who coincidentally put up 23 points, had a very successful comeback. When you've got that, it throws a wrench in a lot of what you plan on or what you expect. But yeah, this was a game that Purdue barely out rebounded Oregon. I believe it was by 2. Oh, no, it ended up being 4, so 32-28. And that's just not what we're used to. And I know recently it's been something to where Purdue has struggled to out-rebound the opponents. But still, this has not been what Purdue's been all year.
No, and this is Oscar Clough, to me, has been – we talked about Fletcher Loyer going through that bit of a slump, but he tends to shoot himself out of it. We've seen that the last 2 games. We'll talk more about that later. But to me, Oscar Clough's been the one that's really struggling. I mean, he was a threat for a stretch there to get a double-double in almost every game. I mean, was scoring almost a guaranteed 10 points every game, was usually in 8 to 12 rebound category. Today, he finishes the game with 3 points and 2 rebounds. Simply put, I don't want to be mean, but that's not good enough.
No.
This is a team that has to be better on the glass, and this is what Matt Painter brought him in for, was to be that X factor on the glass. And that's why you have Daniel Jacobson. Now, I think Daniel played a lot better today, but I don't think Oscar Clough even needs to average or score 10 points a game. I think Purdue's offense is good enough to win without that. He has to get 6 to 8 rebounds at minimum per game for Purdue to be effective, and he just hasn't been able to do that recently. I think part of that is the other team trying to pull him away from the basket, wanting him to play defense around the perimeter because they know how good he is at rebounding the basketball. So I don't know if it's a schematic thing that Purdue needs to change defensively, if it's an aggression thing, but there's certainly something happening right now with Oscar Clough and him not getting the rebounds necessary. Now, one thing I will say is I do still think that he probably takes up, the bigger guys on the glass, so it may create rebounding opportunities. We saw at the end of the game, Matt Painter brought him in off the bench. Daniel Jacobson and Oscar Clough both crash out on or box out well on a missed free throw, and Fletcher swoops in and gets essentially a game-sealing rebound. So still doing his job there, but you got to figure something out, because the big reason you brought Oscar in was to rebound the basketball, and he just, the last couple of games, I don't think he's had more than 6 in a game in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
It's been a really long while since I've used my half TKR and Oscar Clough almost out rebounded the other team. And I was doing that because it was legitimately happening almost night in and night out, and just has not happened. Now, that's not to say that they're not doing some things, but even the last time, and I don't remember when it was, it might have been the last time they were at home before, maybe a time before that Clough scored in double digits. So it's been a while since he's done anything like that, but I think you're absolutely right. They don't necessarily need him to score. Look at today. He only scored 3 points and they won the ball game. That's not saying, they've got plenty of offense. They struggled on offense today mightily, but at the same point, they didn't need his scoring. If he would have been rebounding the way he has been prior to this streak of ineptitude almost on the boards, this is a different game. I don't know. It's just a different game. If Purdue's out rebounding Oregon by 10, we're looking at an 8 to 12 point win rather than eking out a 4-point win and kind of nail biting at the end.
Right. And this game, Purdue had only out rebounded Oregon by 3 total, but only by 1 on the offensive glass. Purdue had 8, Oregon had 7. If you're able to, give yourself 4 more opportunities, like there was a point when, and I don't remember which game it was now. I really don't, but there was a game earlier this season when Oscar had 4 offensive rebounds and he converted those into 8 points, like 1 assist, 6 points off second chance points. So if you are able to get those points, and say he gets 4 more offensive rebounds, it doesn't take a lot. Like I think, a lot of times when you are watching basketball, look at the stats, you're like, Oscar needs to be in 10 to 12. Well, no, he doesn't. If he gets 7 rebounds, 3 or 4 of them are offensive, and Purdue gets 6 or 8 points, this is a double-digit game. I think it's still tighter than people would have thought, but those possessions are big time, and Purdue just hasn't been able to do that on the offensive glass. So they've got to figure something out in that regard, because he's more than capable of getting those offensive rebounds and putting them back. And even when he's not scoring it himself, he's a very good passer, so he can find the open man. They just got to be able to be more effective on the glass, because that was supposed to be a strength. And it felt like the first 15 games of the season, it was a major strength. And then for whatever reason, it's kind of dissipated recently.
If you remember, and this is not me, I was being serious when I said it. So it wasn't like I was just, saying something to say something. The way he was playing that first 10 to 15 games, I really thought he could be an all Big Ten player, the way he was playing, and he was being just so effective in every way. There's something it might be, and I kind of noticed it today. He was on Biddle most of the time, almost every second that when he was in the game. Well, Biddle plays outside the arc. That's not where Oscar Clough plays his best defense. His best defense is in the blocks, banging around with big bodies, and Oregon just didn't have anybody that set up shop in the blocks. They have people that go to the blocks and play a little bit in the blocks, but Biddle doesn't reside in the blocks. He likes to shoot from the outside. You take the 1 of 8 that he shoots from 3 today. He did not shoot well from outside, but he still likes being out there. It just didn't fit Clough. And you made the mention of, is it time to consider going to small ball? In this situation, I almost think it might have been a better situation, because you could have maybe had a switch where TKR, if he's want him down in the blocks or whatever, or down low, have somebody like Benter out there, putting a hand in the face of Biddle, and maybe Purdue's able to do a little bit of more switching. I'm not saying avoid using Clough at all. He is one hell of a good rebounder. He is a great post player, but when he has to play out of position defensively, that becomes a liability.
Well, and today, I made mention of it because today they just weren't getting, it seemed like Oregon was getting timely offensive rebounds. They only got 7 points, which kind of surprised me. It felt like 15.
Yeah.
But they had some timely offensive rebounds, and it got to the point where if Purdue can't get and I'm going to preface this by saying that Oregon missed some open shots. Like, they very easily could have won this ball game. They got Purdue got lucky down the stretch. There were 2 wide open threes that Oregon could have knocked down. And we're having a much different podcast.
And Dustin, they were online. They were just short or a little bit long.
Yes, exactly. So I got to the point where I was like, if rebounding's not going to be a huge advantage and your defense isn't going to be helping you, do you just go back to that kind of small ball? And I'm not saying, I'm like you, I'm not saying that you have to completely change your lineup or shift everything that you've been doing through 23 games, but do you play small ball for 10 or 15 minutes and see if you can get that burst? Because Purdue's offense was struggling in the second half. They could not buy a bucket.
Lethargic, clunky, everything.
They went 6.5 minutes out of halftime without a field goal, and then they went another 2.5 minutes after that surge after the first media timeout without a bucket. And it's just like, can you go to the small ball style, get TKR in the short roll, and maybe get a few points that way? Or does that create openings for CJ or Jakari or Fletcher or Braden to knock down some open shots? I don't know. I'm not a coach, so that's why I'm posing the question. But again, when you're the bigs are on the floor to rebound and to rim protect, and when that's not working, because Biddle got like all of his points in the post or at the foul line.
Right.
And so when those aren't working, do you just say, okay, you know what? We're not getting stops anyway. We're not getting rebounds anyway. Let's go down to the other end of the floor, and then let's mix it up a little bit. Let's go on an 8-10 run, and then hope that they miss shots.
Well, and with that, Dustin, you put a smaller guy to where Biddle's got to guard a smaller guy. It may get him into foul trouble, and it may have a different reaction to where now he's got to sit because he's in some foul trouble, and it has a different outcome as well. But yeah, it's frustrating because we've seen throughout the course of this season how good these guys can be and are, and that's the frustration when you get to the point, with Fletcher, prior to the last two games, he was in such a horrible slump. And now the past two games, Dustin, he's 10 of 14 from threes. That's why we kept saying, you've got to trust that water's going to find its level. Now, don't get me wrong. He's got, and I can see the comments coming. Well, it's against two subpar teams. It does not matter. He's finally starting to get his stroke, and you can't convince me that with confidence doesn't get higher and higher and higher, no matter who you're playing, as long as the shots are going down.
Well, I think him hitting that shot and essentially hitting the game winner and stepping to the free throw line and knocking down,
right.
What was it, 3 or 4? He missed one, but hitting 3 or 4. That's going to me, that carries over. He talks about being confident even when shots aren't falling, but I think he's going to be even more confident now that he had a 29-point performance against Maryland, and then they needed him to step up, and he was able to do that today. So I think his confidence has returned. It's not to say he's going to be perfect or shoot 70 or 75% from three the rest of the season, but I certainly think that that's something he's capable of doing. So I was, a really good performance today from Fletch. He had 18 points. I thought at some point he should have had more shots. I think Oregon was trying to basically have somebody else beat us, and Fletch was able to, knock down the opportunities that he did get. That was a big game for him. I don't care who it's against, because guess what? If you don't have Fletcher Loyer today, you don't beat Oregon. So it doesn't matter to me when those big games come. You're going to need everybody at some point in the season, and today they really needed Fletch, and he pulled through in a big way.
Every single team in the Big Ten will struggle against a team that they shouldn't struggle against. Take Michigan against Penn State. Penn State is in last place in the Big Ten, and they only lost to Michigan by 2. Granted, it was at Penn State, but there are teams that you struggle with. Purdue's, every single one of Purdue's losses is a quad 1 loss, so they don't have a bad loss. So yes, 3 in a row really sucks to see. It absolutely is horrible to see. It's frustrating. There are concerns. I'm not saying all is well, but I'm saying every team's going to struggle at a point with a team that they absolutely should beat. And this, to me, is the game that they were supposed to win by a lot, and Purdue struggled, and they still found a way to win.
I think, Matt Painter has talked about this. There's value. There's not necessarily value in games you win by a lot, getting blowout wins, because maybe you don't learn so much from them. I think they try to learn something from every game they play. But I think that this was an instance of, if shots aren't falling, and they weren't in the second half, can you gut out and grind out a win? And Purdue was able to do that today. And against UCLA, they weren't able to do it. Illinois is the outlier because, everybody was making shots in that game.
They could have shot. They were losing to Illinois the way they were shooting the ball.
Yeah, and then Indiana, they played. TKR had a great offensive game, and I don't know that anybody else really performed at a high level offensively in that one. So I think that this was another example of maybe sometimes this team, and I think probably this works for across college basketball, you have to grind out some wins to get yourself confident to say, you know what, we were in a grinded out game, and that's how we got to win. Like if you go back to the Alabama game, you can say that's a grinded out, but Purdue shot well in that game.
Yeah.
Like they scored 87 points. I'm trying to think if they've had a game like this, and maybe it's just recency bias and I don't remember, where they've had a game like this where they were down to a, let's face it, a lesser opponent, and they were able to kind of scratch and claw their way back. Like everything we've seen this team do, give up a lead at halftime, not shoot the three ball efficiently, not out rebound the opponent as much as they would like. All of that went wrong, and they still found a way to win the basketball game.
Right.
And so maybe that gives you some confidence that when you get in this situation again, whether it be against Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana, any of those 5 games coming up, maybe you can look back on this and say, hey, we were able to do this. We're a little bit more confident and comfortable in this situation as opposed to when we played UCLA or Indiana.
Well, that I made a mental note. And, we've talked about it multiple times on the post game, but then also, we've talked about, Grant and I've talked about it in Boilermaker Lounge, is those last 2.5 to 3 minutes of the past few games, Purdue hasn't been able to either A, hold a lead, or B, get back from trailing and get back into the game. And at I think it was 3 minutes and 25 seconds, Purdue was down. And they were able to, granted, it was a struggle those last 3 minutes to get to that, but they powered through. They found a way. They hit shots and had stops that they needed that just hadn't been coming in the previous game. So that's why I made that mental note, and they actually came through and did that. They hit a shot when they needed it. They got the stop when they needed it. So, that I think that's at least something that you can take going forward from this game as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the one thing, I think that's a little bit concerning is it seems like recently now, the Maryland game excluded, because I think we've seen how bad Maryland is.
Right.
But this team also is struggling to really seize momentum, it seems. There were a couple moments in this game where you thought, okay, this is the moment Purdue turns it on and it's going to be an 18-point game, and maybe it doesn't get out to 30, but you feel comfortable the rest of the way, and they just weren't able to do it. Like, obviously, a lot of that has to do with Oregon knocking down shots, but there were also a lot of easy buckets that Purdue surrendered on the defensive end today. So you're happy that they grinded out a win, grinded. I don't know what
grinded out.
Is.
Yes.
Grinded it out. Got the
Ground
win.
Out.
But again,
got me thinking now. Thanks.
See, that's what I do. But I'm getting to the point where I think teams are essentially saying we're going to see if we can beat Purdue from the 3-point line, because we don't think their perimeter defense is very good. I'd have to go back and look at the stats to back up this theory, because I don't want to just throw it out there and be completely wrong. But the way that Oregon came out and shot a bunch of threes early in this game, they hit a couple of them, and then it opened up some things right at the basket. Like Sean Stewart got some dunks at the rim. I think KJ Evans got a dunk at the rim. Like, they got some easy buckets, and I think they set the tone. Even when they weren't making the 3-pointer, they kind of showed their hand. Like, we're going to show them, we're going to try to beat them from the 3-point line. It's going to create some openings. So, again, Purdue's perimeter defense, their rotations, a lot of work to do in a short time to get it corrected, because you've got an absolute gauntlet coming up starting Tuesday.
You talked about the lack of being able to seize the momentum, and they'd pushed it out in the second half. They'd pushed it out to 6, and they caused a turnover, and the crowd was getting loud. Like, they just hit a shot to get it to 6. Then they forced a turnover at the other end. I looked at the person next to me and said that if they hit a shot right here, the roof is going to explode. They promptly threw it out of bounds, and gone. It was gone. That momentum, that hope for momentum, was absolutely gone. And it happened that way most of the game today. Coach Painter talked about it in the press conference that, they had 7 turnovers in each half. And he said, that's unacceptable. 4 in each half is what to keep it under 4 at or under 4 each half. And he said that, being at 7 each and having 14 total turnovers is just an unacceptable total of turnovers.
Yeah. And I mean, there were some silly turnovers, I thought, today. Some trying to do maybe too much.
Too cute on their passing. Trying to make the beautiful play rather than the very sound play.
Yeah, Oscar did that once. Omer did it once. Braden did it at least once, maybe twice. There was one time I thought Fletcher got fouled when he turned over in the first half. But the one that stands out to me, and I don't understand, Matt, Painter says this in the postgame. He's like, a lot of it has to do with the other team, which I agree with. Oregon has some good players. They're not a good team this year, but they do have some good players.
Right.
But the thing that baffles me a little bit is Purdue had one of the most explosive plays. They had it twice, and these two stick out to me. One was the behind-the-back pass from Omer Meyer to Jack Bechter, layup, makes it, gets fouled, and I think it was a 9-point game, comes back, makes the free throw. I believe it's a 10-point game midway through the first half, if I remember correctly.
We'll see what the highest – it made it at least a 9-point lead. Yeah, Purdue's biggest lead was 9 at 27-18.
Okay, so he missed the free throw, but the point
out of the timeout, he missed the free throw.
Point remains, and then there was another one where Daniel Jacobson throws down a dunk in traffic, lob from Fletcher Loyer, great play, and it's 46-39 after that free throw. Those are two moments where you just say, okay, this is where Purdue just pulls away, and this isn't an isolated incident. This has been, it seems like, every game. They had two double-digit leads in the first half against Illinois. They had a 12-point lead against UCLA. They had a 4-point lead against Indiana, and then they allowed Indiana to outscore 21-5 or 6 in that final stretch.
21-6.
So, but they just have not. Yeah, remember that well.
Yeah,
but they just haven't been able to put their foot on the gas in those pivotal moments. And when you play a team like Michigan or Michigan State, and as they learned against UCLA and Illinois, and even Indiana, you have to be able to take advantage of those moments. And it didn't cost them today, but there's a lot of teams coming up on the schedule that will make them pay if they don't take advantage of those moments.
Well, you mentioned the gauntlet that's coming up. My goodness, the next 5 games, 6 actually are all quad 1 opponents after today. You have Nebraska, Iowa, Nebraska. Is Nebraska next? It is. It's Nebraska,
yes.
Then Iowa, correct? Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan, IU, Michigan State, and then, by the way, we kick off March by going to Ohio State. That's a difficult stretch. And, all of them are quad 1s, and I can see it now. I haven't been on social media since after the game, but I can see it. The sky has fallen, and it's still continuing to fall. Here's the thing. I may be an optimist, and people may be like, man, you're just insufferable. I am not as concerned for the fact that this was their struggle game against a team they should. People would say, IU, you should have beaten IU. Well, in Bloomington, it's a little bit of a different story. I don't give them a pass, but I don't say this is absolutely the game that, this is a game Purdue should win. Oregon coming in at 1-10 into Mackey Arena, this is a game you should win, and this is the game that they struggled with. You know what I mean? So while I'm concerned, and there are things that Purdue needs to absolutely clean up, I'm not convinced there's a perfect, infallible team in this country that's playing basketball right now anyways. So I've seen Purdue play very, very well, and if they can hit that stride again, they're as dangerous as the next team. So and it may be just the homer in me too, Dustin. I don't know.
Well, Michigan State lost to Minnesota. You pointed out, Michigan lost at home to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a good team, but they're not a great team. And so I think that, you always go through these type of lulls. It's a long season. The important thing is you found a way to win. That's first and foremost.
Correct.
And no team is perfect. You're going to have these stretches where things look a little rough. I think it's because of the preseason expectations that everybody had. And, but I'm with you on this. I think I'm a little bit more concerned about their ability to make a deep run in March. I honestly thought Final Four was going to be the bare minimum that this team reached. And maybe that was dopey on my part to think that. It just seemed like they had all the pieces in place.
36-4, Dustin. Come on, dude.
There you go. So I'm going to back off of that a little bit. I think it's far from a guarantee that they would reach the Final Four. But I like you, I think back to when they were playing so well and so cohesive, and it looked like they just got off the, when TKR returned and they got off the bus and they just looked like everything was working for them. If they can get back to that team, then they're capable of getting to the Final Four. So without question, these next 5 games are critical. I don't even care.
You're still not willing to give Ohio State a quad 1, are you?
6. Well, really, 7 of their last 8 games are tough. The only one that shouldn't
I don't disagree.
Shouldn't be. The only one that shouldn't be, and we say this, but we thought Oregon wasn't going to be too tough, is Northwestern. Northwestern is not a very good team, but Purdue's had their issues in Evanston. They lost the last 2 games they've gone to Chicago. Evanston. So, I mean, I would say, though, I'm not even concerned right now about Purdue winning the Big Ten or not. I think Illinois is really good. I think Michigan's really good. I think Nebraska's really good. I think all 3 of those teams are going to be in the conversation at the season's end. Purdue may be there, they may not, but ultimately,
I still think Purdue controls their own destiny when it comes to the Big Ten, and I know that's a huge tall order. I understand that it's a huge tall order. The problem is Illinois, because they don't play Illinois again. But still, Purdue, if they beat the teams that they should, Illinois is the only caveat, like one in there that could really throw a wrench. Purdue's got 3 losses. Michigan's only got 1. So does Illinois. Michigan State and Nebraska both have 2. So Purdue plays all of them except for Illinois. They're the only ones that they don't play.
You get the tiebreakers with Michigan State and Nebraska if you feel that, and if you beat Michigan, that puts them at 2 losses if they don't drop another one. So I mean, I'm not quite as.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying they could they don't technically, because they would need some help. But if Purdue goes 8-0 the rest of the way and wins out, 15-3 is huge.
I agree. 17-3.
17. That's what I meant. 17-3.
You're thinking back to when this conference only had 14 teams in it, Sam. Golly.
Well, actually, I can remember when there was only 10 in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So I can't too.
I remember Penn State making a big deal about Penn State coming into the conference.
That was significant. This is what I'm gonna say though, and where my mind is. Regardless of how Purdue finishes this season, there are people who tend to crash out over the fact that there will be tweets if Purdue does not win the Big Ten or if they're mathematically eliminated or whatever. This was a disappointing season, fell short of expectations. But you want to win the Big Ten, but do you care if you get to the Final Four and give yourself a chance to win a championship? So that's all I'm saying, where it's like, even if Purdue doesn't win the Big Ten, they finished 6th last year, and they're 1 play away from basically going to the Final Four, because they would have hosed Tennessee in that Elite 8 game if they come out of that game against Houston. So I'm just saying, even if they don't win the Big Ten, don't write the team off, because March is you get good matchups, you get good locations, things fall your way, you still have a great chance to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Well, here's what the way I look at it, and I've gone on record saying, if a Big Ten championship happens and March there's a failure, a underperformance in there, I'm not going to consider that a disappointing season, because you won the Big Ten.
Right.
That's a gauntlet. Now, that's not to say I don't want to win in March, and I'm not disappointed they didn't perform in March. It's the same way if they don't win the Big Ten. I'm not going to consider it a disappointment of a season, but I will be disappointed that they did not win the Big Ten. That to me is the difference. There is, I can consider, and what do I hold higher in higher regards? I hold a Big Ten. Now, again, I want to go to the Final Four. I want to win a national championship. But if something happens in March to where we get, a bad draw and there's just one whale of a gauntlet of a bracket, I'm not going to say, oh, well, we didn't go to the Final Four, this is a disappointing season. No, we still won the Big Ten.
Sure.
And that, so I'm not defending my stance on I hold a Big Ten championship at higher regard than a failed, tournament run. But that's kind of where I stand on that is, I want it to happen. I'm Purdue through and through here, but I have some logical, like, I'm not going to, the sky's not falling yet, folks. It just isn't falling yet.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. These are a big 2 games, and we'll obviously see what this team is made of, because you got a Nebraska team, and maybe part of this is looking ahead. Like, again, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. Maybe your focus is, hey, we got to play a really tough Nebraska team on Tuesday. Maybe you're thinking ahead because you just pummeled Maryland. You think you're going to do the same thing to Oregon. You find yourself in a dogfight. So, we'll see. There's a lot of season left. There's a lot that this team can still accomplish. No need to write them off. I'm just saying I'm not quite as convinced that it's a guarantee to the Final Four as I was.
Oh no, me neither. Me neither.
So, but I think that there's a lot of season left, and that team that we saw, Nebraska's going to be an interesting. And maybe we'll talk. Maybe I'll be able to join this week and talk a little bit. Oh,
really? You're going to grace us with your presence? All right.
Yeah, I'm inviting myself on this program because.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. But it's about time.
Because
jeez.
They've got a big pick and pop big man, and that's kind of giving them some trouble. They have a really good cohesive unit. I think if they win that game, I'm not saying they're going to win out, but I think if they win that game, that would be the confidence booster that this team really needs to gather some momentum going into in the middle of its toughest stretch.
Question for you before we wrap it up, and I know this is going outside the post game because I'm going to this road trip. If they go 1-1, is that a successful road trip? And if it isn't, because I guess if it is there a specific one that you win, or is it just getting one of 2 on the road in these 2 tough ones with Nebraska and Iowa?
Yeah, those are 2 really good teams. I would say if you go 1-1, it depends on how you look. Like, to me, if they play the way they did against Indiana or the way they played today against Oregon, I don't know that I would consider 1-1 successful. But, for example, if you get into a game against Nebraska and they just shoot the ball the way Illinois did, sometimes you say, okay, Purdue played well. Nebraska just shot 45% from 3 and you couldn't. I mean, I still think there's going to be some defensive issues there, but if teams just shoot out of their mind, to me, I'm like, did Purdue play well? They played well enough to win. They just didn't win this game. It's on the road. It's a good team. They had to make everything to win the game. If it's something like what we saw against Iowa State or Oregon and you go 1-1, then I think you're going, we've got 3 really good teams. Even though they're home games, this team has struggled at times at home. How confident do we feel with Michigan coming in, a team that is, top 5 team in the country right now?
Yeah, and I kind of feel that it, like you said, it depends how they look. Now, if they go 2-0 and they look kind of in a couple of spots, I'm still going to be happy as all get out because they're 2-0 on the road against Nebraska and Iowa. But
no question. No question. If they go 2-0, I'm not interrupting. If they go 2-0, I don't care how. That means they gritted out a win.
But if they go 1-1 and they looked good in both of the games, I'm not going to be disappointed in a loss somewhere. And like you said a little bit ago, is you can get some things out of a loss that it may be more valuable than a blowout win. So it is possible to well, I guess you said a win where you struggle, but you can get one and you can learn a lot in a game that you play well but still lose. There's times that you can play well and lose a ball game, and so I agree. As long as they look good, they have to perform. They have to clean up some of the things, or they need to force the other team into the same type of troubles that they run into. You know what I mean? If that's the case, then you know what, we're on fair ground because they're struggling on things that they need to improve on, and so's Purdue. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That just, but all right. Well, it's going to be a fun one on Tuesday. I hate going. I hate watching games in Lincoln. I'm not going to be there, but it's not been a fun place for Purdue to go to in the past, but you know what? Neither is Piscataway, neither is College Park. We got wins at both of those places this year. Why not get one in Lincoln? Why not?
That'd really get the confidence back on the right track if you're able to take down the top 10 Nebraska team.
Well, that post-game show will be a wonderful one if that does indeed happen. But all right, well, that wraps up BoilerBall post-game in the lounge for this one. Final score: Purdue. Number 12, Purdue 68, Oregon 64. Hard fought, struggle win, but you know what? Win's a win in the especially in the Big Ten. So for Dustin Schutte, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll talk to you later.